Hi, this is Peter Stanley. Welcome to my channel. I just want to do a demo of test out the sprouting jar. This is from Now Real Food brand. It's got a nice little mesh screen, and I think this is a half-gallon size. And the store price was $5.99. It's at S&L Natural Foods. Picked this up while traveling. We want to try one of these. So basically what you do is soak your seeds. This is a little wet because I cleaned it. But you put your seeds in the jar, and then twice a day you fill it to cover the seeds, let them soak, and then you can pour it off and rinse it out. Do that a couple of times, 2 to 3 times a day. And that same brand has some sprouting seed mixes, and this one is what I'm trying first. It's got Clover, Fenugreek, and Radish seeds, and a pound of this was $6.99. I think they say do 2 to 3 tablespoons, but I measured out 1/4 of a cup and about 8 ounces of water. So I'm going to soak these overnight. The sprouting jar came with an instruction booklet and some recipes and a sprouting timetable, which is nice. And they suggested using a product they sell. It's like a citric acid powder to prevent spoilage. I think basically the acid from that probably kills any pathogens that might be on the seed. What I use for my sprouting, food grade 35% hydrogen peroxide. And when I bought it, it's in this jar. I mean, the bottle I keep in the freezer. It also came with a little dropper dispenser. So what I do is I measure about 10 drops per 8 ounces of water when I'm soaking the seeds, and also when I rinse, and that will kill any germs that might be growing on the seed coats. So that's what I'm using. So I'll go ahead and show the process over the next few days, how these do, and sprout them in this jar. Okay, day 0 is when I rinse off the seeds that I soaked the night before. And I gave these another little rinse in a strainer. Just dump them in the sprouting jar. Give another little rinse and then pour that off. And then I just set them sort of at an angle in a bowl and cover them up. And I do this twice a day, each day. So this is after one full day, and you can see some sprouting has begun. At this point, the sprouts are very delicate, so you want to be careful not to let them shift any more than necessary, because they could break easily and that would cause spoilage. So be as careful as I can, not let these shift too much. Set that there. And I let these soak a few minutes between draining. So I cover them up. And this is on day 2. You can see quite a bit more sprout growth has occurred. Almost maybe a third of the container full. And I started with 1/4 of a cup, so that's 4 tablespoons. And I learned that that's probably a little too much for that size jar. 3 tablespoons is probably the max you should use. Carefully pouring this out. Day 3. Sprouts are really taking off at this point. Almost fill the whole jar. Probably about 2/3 full now, I guess. can see a lot of the seed holes in there. We're going to pull those out on day 4. So at the end of day 3, I drain it off and I don't cover it. So at this point I'm going to let it get ambient room light to try to green those up a little bit. So I'm going to set it in the bowl and just leave it. And just one day, on day 4, you can see how much greening has occurred just from indirect light. It also makes the seed holes easier to see because they stay brown. So what I'm going to do on this day is, this was a suggestion from the sprouting guide that came with the jar, is to soak them and then get the holes. Here I'm doing another treatment with the hydrogen peroxide. One squirt is about 10 drops, and the way I measured it, it's about half strength when I used originally. So it's about 10 drops per 16 ounces. And this is just give another little sanitizing rinse on these. And the instruction guide said you could just dump them in the sink, but I'm using a plastic colander bowl. And the way this will work is the holes will float to the top. I don't show it here, but I'm going to rinse that jar and add a little more water, and then I'm going to take a strainer and get these floating seed holes out. If you agitate the sprouts, more will float to the top, as you'll see. And this isn't 100%, I'll still have a few left, but it gets most of them out doing it this way. It really cleans the sprouts up too. You don't have a bunch of stuff floating around. Extends the life too, because that stuff is just going to go bad, and the sprouts themselves are still alive, so they're, if you can get the hulls out, it helps longevity of your sprouts. You could actually sprout in that container that I'm rinsing them with. That's a good way too, because of the colander. It's easy to rinse and drain. So now I'm just going to carefully fill these back. And after I started, I realized I should probably rinse the little leftover holes that I didn't catch, so I kind of cleaned that up a little bit more. So it looks much better. Put the lid back on, and I want to continue to leave it uncovered. Let that drain a little bit. Looks good. So it's 5 days. You can see that's greened up even more, and it's grown some more, and that entire jar is packed full. So that's very easy to do. I used most of this in a stir fry, and used a lot of it in pita and hummus, and I put them on wraps too. They're really good. But thank you very much for watching that. Hope you all enjoyed that, found it useful, and please like, comment, and subscribe.